The tables of the Arbores significantes beatitudinum ordines in Lambert of St-Omer's Liber Floridus, diagrammatic devices for memorization and exegesis. Around 1120, Canon Lambert of St-Omer wrote the Liber Floridus, a vast encyclopedic compilation of 161 chapters. 9 copies of this book remain today, and only 7 contain images. One of them, preserved in the University Library of Ghent, is considered as an autograph, so written by Lambert of St-Omer himself. The Liber Floridus aims at providing an overview of knowledge thanks to textual descriptions and numerous composite images, which may be narrative images as well as iconic or diagrammatic ones. It highlights the 12th century enthusiasm for visual tools to have access to a higher knowledge and even wisdom helpful for a learning reader or spectator. Both in devotional and epistemic contexts, such visual tools spread into encyclopedias, notebooks, textbooks, school books, or meditation books. Their formal and figurative characteristics depend on the role they play in the cognitive process of teaching, learning, and memorizing. As hybrid objects at the crossroads between text and image, diagrams strengthen the intellectual, reflexive, and meditative process. The Liber Floridus is probably one of the most studied medieval encyclopedias, and historians, philologists, and art and images historians have very often commented on its diagrams. But one of them has been very little studied, probably because of its tabular form, which organization and graphical aspect are less elaborate than other diagrams of the book. This table remains a diagram still. Its figuration is characterized by its distributive efficiency, its graphical continuity, and its ability to contain text and/or images. The table, entitled Arbores significantes beatitudinem ordines, distributes the images of 8 plants listed among others by Lambert of St-Omer: cedar, cedrus, cypress, cypressus, palm, palma, rose, rosé, olive tree, oliva, plane tree, platanus, terebinth, terebinthus, and vine, vitis. In other words, Lambert of St-Omer brings together 8 of the plants' wisdom, who is, quote, rooted in a glorious people, end of quote, uses in the Book of Sirach. With each specius, Lambert of St-Omer associates a bliss from the Gospel of Matthew. Such a disposition is of primary interest regarding the way diagrams constitute important tools for memory and exegesis. Indeed, this kind of visual organization stands on mnemotechnic practices inherited from antiquity, according to which a content is better remembered when it is learned by developing a structure that helps localizing it. Especially in the second half of the Middle Ages, exegetes use this system and materialize localizing structures to signify a progression towards knowledge. This progression is done for many kinds of figures, but it can also be structured through processes related to hypotyposis, that is to say, the animated description of a scene in the process of being experienced. In the Middle Ages, organizing a forest, an orchard or a garden was a frequent hypothesis to designate any structuring activity of the mind, which often consisted in establishing a hierarchical commentary on a text. Standing on the folios 139 verso and 140 recto of the supposedly autographed manuscript of the Liber Floridus, my presentation will seek to understand whether the trees, distributed in the boxes over the table, operate on the same principle as a tree area, like a forest, an orchard or a garden, for mnemotechnic purposes. The definition of a diagram will be interesting to discuss, as well as the relations between text and images, and the role of mnemotechnic practices in the reading and visualization habits of the 12th century. Ultimately, this work will tackle broader issues, including the encyclopedic organization of knowledge itself and its role as a vector towards wisdom. My presentation will ask whether Lambert of St-Omer pushes even further the exemplary implementation of vegetabilizing knowledge by entitling his book Liber Floridus, the flowery book, thereby suggesting that his reader, once his reading is completed, would have rich wisdom, whose, according to the book of Sirach, quote, flowers are fruits of glory and wealth, end of